to another exciting edition of Poet the Poet, where we give you new adventures in poetry every time that we appear. And we're appearing today courtesy of the Café de Fledermausmensch, somewhere in the wilds of Queens. Herr Bruce Vane is the proprietor, if you know your German. And we have two wild and woolly poets. No, that's not true. We have a wild and woolly poet over here in Lynn Gerber, and we have a wild and woolly musician over here in the person of Tony Paterniti. And we're very excited to have both of them around. And, well, let's start with Lynn, shall we? Welcome to the show. A native New Yorker, wife, mother of two sons, who are always trying to give her ideas for poems, but never quite work out that way. Used to design apparel and textiles.
Yep. How
do you design a textile?
On paper, you just paint and have a good time.
Mm-hmm. All right. Moved up to administrative assistant, where you don't have to fool with the paints anymore. And poet. And let's see, 8 years ago, you never even wrote a postcard?
That's true.
How did you write home for money, then?
Well, I didn't. I didn't write home for anything.
Ah, okay. Then the lid blew off.
Yes.
What triggered all that?
A very traumatic event, which I don't want to go into, but then memory just flew back.
But there was a small advantage in it because now you're writing.
That's true. Right. No, I've been liberated by having memory. It's painful, but liberating.
No, there's a price that every poet has to pay for their creative flow. Anyway, let's have a little creative flow then.
Okay. I'll start with a poem that's a little more abstract than my usual work. Staring at white lima beans strewn across the table. An albino angelfish swimming in a blue lagoon, its patterns reflected in the jetty wall. I dream of lima beans that bounce off my table. I want to pick up and eat these yogurt-covered almonds. I wish they were dipped in white chocolate. Better yet, dark, bitter chocolate. I sniff them and they shout, "Vanilla, you amoeba! Can't you recognize vanilla when you smell it?" Alone, I walk my insulted body along the beach. I kick up wet sand, make footprints in its dark, compacted skin. From the foamy water chasing my feet, I run to bone-dry, white sand. Were these grains ever bigger? Non-eroded large grains or stones? Perhaps the size of small ruffled seashells, water-worn, smooth as glass, silky as a shell's salmon-pink insides. I pick up a bean and press it with my thumb against my fingers. It is cool and ice cream slippery, calorie-free, but I can't eat it or I'll feel like a swallowed stone. This hard, uncooked lima bean does not appease my appetite, only my imagination as thought drifts toward my favorite edibles, favorite visuals. I put the bean to my ear. This is no conch. It has many beach qualities, but I hear no sea singing in it. Staring at lima beans, I see where each bean would sprout a root if I buried it in cotton and water, like I did in grade school. Or was that my son's class project, watching scrawny stems shoot up and little leaves bump out? When I mold a bunch of these perfect limas into a single mound, I think, a bleached pile of garbage, no bean necklace to string from these pod products. One bean is different, bruised, its casing chipped, its vulnerable core exposed, not pristine pretty like the others, not smooth, not monochromatic. Its packed inside is pistachio colored. I finally understand what makes me ugly.
Leaping lima beans.
Yes.
Is that anything like Mexican jumping beans?
No, they're a little bit bigger.
Ah, okay.
And a very pale color.
Probably from Lima, Peru, wouldn't you say, Tony? What triggers off a poem like that, for heaven's sakes?
Actually, I had a bunch of beans on the table, and I was just looking at their shapes, and then I moved them around a little bit, and they reminded me of different things, so I had to get my pen and paper and write.
Okay, well, maybe we can play a little poker for those lima beans a little later. You throw them in the backyard, and you have a lovely garden, by the way.
Thank you, thank you.
And we can grow a beanstalk up somewhere.
Okay, as long as there's no giant involved.
Why not? Anyway, what else you got in there?
Okay. This is one of my more serious ones, and I tend to be known for my more serious poetry. I don't want to be who I am. I want to be who I was before it happened, be who I would have been if it had never happened. If Father's hands had not surrounded my 3-year-old neck and shaken my body like a dust mop till air stopped its silent travel out of my mouth. If the doctor had not come to the house and he and Mother told me I have asthma. If instead they had admitted Father had squeezed out almost every speck of curiosity, spontaneity, laughter, and forced my soul into the mold of an automaton, and forced my flesh into a receptacle, and forced my voice into hiding. But they did not. And from that day on, I offered no resistance. My body mutely yielded to all its demands, while I vacated my flesh, went to a less dangerous place. When I returned, I was very careful. First, careful not to show feelings, then careful not to feel, and most of all, careful not to remember. It's a very big if, but if they had not gone along with his lie, I had known with each cell in my body, only Father was my enemy. I could have trusted adults. Despite Father, if Mother had not been a big ostrich, and if both my sisters had not been little ostriches, I would not have been confused. I'd have known what Father did was really happening. I would not have shunned sunlight and moonlight and become a pale shadow of indifference. Now, though I stand in the blinding glare of memory, no tears form. Time fossilized all that my brain could not let out. Childhood stamps its feet and refuses to be shed. Now I sense my hunger and want to sate it with the mangoes, endives, and chocolate of sex, of love, of literature, of friendship. I always knew I didn't want to be me. Now I know. I want to be who I could have been, not this distant echo.
It is touching. You've taken a lot of workshops. Do you find that the things that disturb you most when you write a poem like that, do they come out in the workshops, or?
Sometimes they do. It depends. If the workshop is really good and accesses information that's deep inside you, then it does. Otherwise, you get more superficial things.
Mm-hmm.
But with a good class and good vibes, definitely you access what's deep inside.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that you've started running a few workshops of your own.
Yes, right.
Is that the sort of goal that you set for the students in the workshop, or
Definitely.
do you have other plans?
No, that's definitely my goal. Actually, I've also put together a panel of incest survivors, and we'll be touring, making presentations of poetry and prose, so that people, not only the public, can become more aware, but also people who have memories that have been concealed will be able to deal with it, hopefully, be inspired, know that they can survive, they can live through it.
Mm-hmm. Tony, have you run any workshops?
No, I haven't run any workshops, but I just wanted to say that that poem was very powerful.
Oh, thank you very
powerful.
much.
Yeah. Have you ever written a song that's really tapped into an audience's feelings, and they come up and tell you about it?
That's happened, sure, that's happened. Ideally, that's what you do. Like with that poem, try and get to the most central place in yourself, and then invariably it turns out to be a very universal spot.
Yes.
Well, when I do that, they throw things at me. And speaking of performing and whatnot, you're running a couple of reading series.
Yes.
Tell us about them.
I run the West Side Writer's Voice open mic series, and those readings are 4 per semester, which is 4 times a year, so there are 16 readings a year. And then I do Poetry at Picnic Place, which is at a gourmet deli, and that's a weekly series. I have 2 features and an open mic, and I'm very lucky. It's not always the biggest crowd, but it's always very talented people.
So you You run a reading in a deli, is that it?
Yes, a gourmet deli.
How often do you find yourself in a pickle?
Not too often, but I do like their food.
All right. Well, before I get into a pickle here, how about another poem?
Okay. Exposed. Basking in the aura of child or animal, I do not shun the brazen adult stare of a camera. Hungry little hearts have eyes which focus on my love for them. Their accepting gaze masks my frame with flawless skin. As they reach and grab and drink, they clothe me with silken blossoms. Like a flowering tree, I do not notice the scrutiny of a lens. Beyond their lively warmth and needy scent, I fear my gnarled twigs show. I want the long braided cover of a weeping willow. And then, if you want, I have a couple teeny little ones. I don't know.
Let's slip in a teeny
Okay.
one or two.
Pale roses. I'm reluctant to give them up. They are wonderful even when dead. Curled, crispy petals, their decadent hues edged in brown, drooping green leaves tinged with gold and bronze.
One more.
Okay. Shall I go with the pro and con of poetry?
Sure, why not?
Okay. It saves a fortune. I'd rather write than shop. It costs a fortune. I'd rather write than cook, clean, get a decent job. By far, it's the cheapest form of therapy. Seesawing my spirits mostly up, up. Wow, what I spend on postage. No time for crossword puzzles or TV. It's all spent with my computer. A costly purchase plus the electrician's fee. Still trying to earn back those bucks, my mind lingers in a wordy sandbox, and I swing ever higher with playmate poets.
The pro and con of poetry, huh?
Yep.
Well, I meet so many who are bipolar. I wanted to ask you, wanted to get a little taste of the workshop. What's the most important thing you tell your writers?
I think relaxing. If you can do sort of a semi-meditation for like 5 minutes before, then you really get into the deep material.
Okay, and Lynn, give us that one more little one.
Okay. Poets are polemic, raging or tender, filled with themselves or the world. They evade or seek. A few cringe me with cackles, other breeze me with their music.
Well, thank you, Lynn Gerber, for coming on Poet the Poet, and you can seek us right here in a moment because we'll be back with Tony Paterniti. Don't go away.